Welcome to Inside the Program, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. Got Eric and Aline with us as usual. We got some holiday week notes to talk about the Longhorns as they get ready for their Peach Bowl matchup with the Arizona State Sun Devils. The team just came back, I think, on Thursday, day after Christmas, and they will be back at practice. If they weren't yesterday, we'll be back at practice today. Inside Texas will be there to check it out. And then the team flies to Atlanta on Sunday to start some preparation there. But before we look a little bit forward, we'll look a little bit backward at some of the stuff from the Clemson game worth going over and what applies for the matchup with the Sun Devils. So Clemson, obviously in the rearview mirror, but a big win nonetheless. And a lot of that, Eric, was driven by the offensive line succeeding even after a little bit of a shakeup.
Yeah, with the Clemson game, you're trying to figure out what scales through the rest of the playoffs. And, the offensive line being able to play through adversity, injuries, quick shakeups, that was a monster overhaul that would sink a lot of offensive lines. And incredibly, they went on to rush for almost 300 yards despite all the setbacks. Switching out your right tackle for a guy that's been playing left tackle the whole season. Your center got switched out for a guy that's been playing guard the whole season. And your right guard had to get moved to left guard. And so it's kind of it's one of the more insane performances I've seen from an offensive line, accounting for all the different shakeups that they had positional wise.
We talk about what may scale going forward. We'll learn more about Cam Williams because we'll be able to see him at practice if he's practicing. But we can scale forward a little bit into 2025 and understand that an O-line that even if it sees Kelvin Banks depart, when it sees Jake Majors depart, when it sees Hayden Conner depart, there's still a couple pieces there, especially in the form of Trevor Goosby, that will have this offensive line still not looking like a place of weakness, but still in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, if you made a list of the 10 most important players going into next season, you'd have to have Goosby up there pretty damn high. We know that he could play left tackle at a high level. He can play right tackle at a high level. There's a chance that he's going to be a guy that's only 1 year starter and then gone, similar to Cam Williams this year, assuming that Cam does depart. I do think Cam will play this week. We'll see what Sark says today. The injury information came back fairly positive, so I think that's a good sign. But yeah, go ahead. Next season, still have to figure out center. Not a number of ways they can go, directions they can go. Cole Hudson, maybe a portal guy, maybe Connor Robertson, maybe even Daniel Cruz. But yeah, we'll see. The offensive line, we're getting a little bit more optimism based on what we've seen from DJ Campbell. Had a pretty good game too, if he comes back, and but mainly Trevor Goosby.
And I think sometimes we forget about how the tight ends work in blocking with the run blocking in that game. When you go for 300 yards, those guys have to do something right. And I think you shouted them out in your notes, and means the program did as well. Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm did their job all night in blocking, especially on some of those big Jaden Blue and Quintravian Weisner touchdown runs.
Yeah, they actually got shouted out from a source when he was talking about Ewers. Felt like they did a pretty good job giving him extra time to make the big play, make the big throw. But yeah, you see Juan Davis clearing a path on a lead block in the in the red zone for a touchdown. Gunnar Helm had probably his best overall game ever when you consider receiving impact and as well as blocking. That's going to be on his NFL tape when they cut away to show the highlights when they're talking about the player. A lot of that game will be on there. So Juan Davis, really underappreciated player throughout the season. I think everybody's excited for him getting a chance to play, and I think he's lived up to the hype. As Paul's noted, he's a bit more of a screener at times, but there are also times when he's a lead blocker coming downhill that he puts a little lead behind it and gets some displacement. So really good overall game. Hopefully that scales forward. They need those guys as blockers, especially as these defensive lines improve. If they play Ohio State, if they get Georgia again, we need those guys blocking to their best ability.
Anybody left in the playoff who's likely to move on. But you mentioned it. Let's keep on going. Talk about Quinn Ewers' performance versus Clemson. Obviously a guy who has been under a microscope over the past 2 months, 3 months, 4 years, whatever you want to call it. Gets a little bit of revenge on his old buddy Cade Klubnik for the Dodge Bowl. Has a solid performance, of interception that really wasn't his fault, and did a lot of great things, including, as our Ian Boyd noted, making one of the best plays of his season, if not his career, at Texas.
Yeah, the revenge on Klubnik is just the player with the best team won both times. I think Quinn was kind of up against the wall in that state championship game. This time Cade was up against the wall. But the overpass to Golden received a lot of the headlines, but my sources were most excited about changing the arm slot, standing in the pocket, and hitting the screen in the third quarter. That showed a lot of toughness. I think Quinn has displayed a good amount of toughness this year, playing through multiple injuries. But the sources I talked to were very excited. Like, this team can win a national championship with Quinn playing at that level. I think we've slowly seen his confidence come back since late October, early November. They had the bye week, and then Florida played pretty well, but that wasn't a real test. Week by week, I think he's gotten a little bit better. And of course, he was aided by the run game, but he was also helping the run game too by connecting on passes. So we saw some mutually beneficial results between the run game and the pass game. They need that balance. That balance is really what typifies Sark's offense. That's why he likes to run the ball as much as he does. But Quinn did more than his part, protected the ball. The DeAndre Moore thing was not his fault. Moore's got to make that play, or at least not set it up in the air. That was just kind of incredible. But yeah, hopefully that Quinn is the one we see the rest of the season. If so, and the defense doesn't have another letdown like that, Texas could be raising a trophy.
One of the things I think that has come under the microscope is Quinn Ewers, even as a junior, third-year player, would make what we call freshman mistakes and has people clamoring to see another quarterback. Well, we saw the redshirt freshman on Saturday against Clemson make some freshman mistakes, gave Clemson the ball, made a good play, but I think we're seeing a little bit more often what Sark sees in practice every day. Not to say that, Manning doesn't have a place on this team this year, especially if they're going to continue to use him in the red zone and in specialty situations. But we also saw some evidence of why, throughout everything, all the different, talk and stuff like that, Quinn Ewers is and remains quarterback one on this team.
Yeah, and I think it's also hard to just come in for a couple of plays like Arch has. We saw him when he played. What was his first start? Was it UTSA? Was it ULM?
It was ULM.
Yeah, and he had some struggles through a couple picks in that game, and then he came back the next week after having a full week of practice as a starter. Played really well against Mississippi State. I think part of it is he does lack experience. He lacks time during practice week, and then coming in off the bench and playing sparingly. I don't know if that's fair to anybody. But yeah, there will be freshman mistakes or first year starter mistakes next year for Arch. Everybody always sees, they see the downside of Quinn and the upside of Arch, which is unfair. I think to both, it raises expectations for Arch that are probably unfair. And then it diminishes some of the good stuff that Quinn has done. But going into this season, our sources were confident that Quinn was the better quarterback. And, we don't talk to Steve Sarkisian, so he wasn't one of the sources. So obviously our sources are in line with Sark. And that's why, we've really downplayed any talk of controversy that we've heard.
Before we keep on going, we'll go to someone uncontroversial. That is Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
Thank you, LC. Thank you, Andre. We'll keep on going. And one of the things you mentioned is just that early look provided on Christmas Eve still holds true. There's a lot of respect for Cam Skattebo, top 5 in the Heisman vote. I personally wonder if maybe when Arizona State played at Texas State, if during the course of that week, maybe Texas players went down there, or if not, definitely watched it on TV, knowing there's some old teammates on Arizona State that they could see, some guys they may have been familiar with on the Bobcats, watch a great game. But Sark even mentioned that there's a lot of respect in the program for Skattebo, and with good reason. He's the focal point of the Sun Devil offense.
Yeah, Sark mentioned that there had been fans in the building for a year and a half. So that goes back to what a lot of us watched on Inside Texas late at night after the Texas game were done and dusted, and you got Pack After Dark. Everybody's like, who the hell is this kid just trucking everybody? He runs so hard, makes big plays. I think, the staff made him watch the defense watch a good amount of Skattebo on Monday just to get try to raise their respect for him and understand, they've got to have to pursue gang tackle and all those things. There's still a lot of confidence on the defense. They're like, come on, man, this guy ain't running on us. But I think that a few players might learn the hard way. He'll leave a jockstrap on the field just as soon as he'll run you over. He's a tough guy, but with a good team defense, good defensive line play, get him before he really gets going. Make him earn every yard. I think Texas is gonna do a good job. The guy's not invincible. He did have some rough games during the season that Arizona State struggled to win. I think I don't think fans should be totally fearful of him. But also you should have a good amount of respect for him. However, Texas has a better team. One-on-one, the defense versus their offense, the defensive line versus their offensive line is a win for Texas. You got to like Anthony Hill coming downhill, David Benda and Leon Lafau as well. Safeties have been great in run support. So I think Skattebo is going to have a tough game, but he'll make a play or two.
Should be one of the keys to watch, especially now that Tyson, their star wide receiver's out. Freshman quarterbacks have had their problems against Texas, and I think Levitt is a redshirt freshman or second-year player, but still, that's a lot of youth for Texas to have to handle a Texas defense. Should be interesting to see some of how those other former Longhorns like Prince Dorba, Troy O'Meary, Xavier Alford, Zach Swanson. That should be fun. But the big thing to watch, of course, is Skattebo. Last thing is, now that the class of 2025 is all done and signed, Justice Terry being the big late addition, we got another Terry to talk about, and Michael Terry and also Lance Jackson. These are a couple guys who, and more are more likely to come, but Texas already has a few members of its class of 2025 on campus. I think we went over this. The rules are you can be in on-campus practices, but not like the bowl practices. Have to clarify, but still, two of Texas' top signees in its 2025 class are already starting to get reps and experience ahead of next year, where they could really make an impact on the team.
Yeah, that more showed up after the short Christmas break, but these guys were on campus before Christmas break. On the 23rd, they were practicing, running both on scout team. They wanted to arrive as early as possible and be a part of it. Kind of aligns with what I'd heard about Jamie French when a lot of people were tracking that recruitment, whether or not he was going to go to Florida or Texas. And he said, I can't wait to get to Austin in December. I thought December was a bit of a weird date for him to get there. So I imagine he's probably on campus or on his way. We've heard Justice Terry might be coming pretty soon too. But yeah, I think it's just a good indicator. These guys want to come and be a part of something special, potentially special. It's already been a good season. But Lance Jackson, is anybody surprised by that? He had the most no-nonsense recruitment of any high-level elite player that you'll recall. Just kind of committed, and we never heard from him again. And it also says that Michael Terry was bought into Texas a long time ago. We weren't really sweating that recruitment outside of the fact that you have to pay attention to every recruitment in the NIL era. But he'd been committed for months, and I think his commitment is even more resolute now that he's already on campus and practicing.
One thing that kind of sticks out to me is these are guys who definitely have opportunity next year. Jack is going to have, some of the numbers are going to be a little bit less. You still have Vosick, you'll still have Burt, but there's a real opportunity for Lance Jackson there. Wide receiver, same thing. Who knows what the turnover in that room is going to look like. And whatever they decide to put Terry as offensive weapon, he's going to have opportunities.
Wide receiver for Terry.
And then Justice Terry, that type of pedigree, they always talk about how if it's closer to the ball, it's harder to play early. But when you're that type of physical, have that type of physical ability, you may lend yourself to playing early. And it just speaks, I think, Eric, you were talking about it with French, but speaks to the rest of the class. They know the getting's good in Texas, and they want to be there as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's a good time to be at Texas. But, hopefully Justice Terry is there pretty soon because, he's going to have a bit of an acclimation period. We all know that he's a full-grown man, but he's playing lesser competition in Georgia. But I do think that they're going to carve out a role for him. He'll be a D-tackle version or a D-line version of Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, a guy that they want to get on the field early as far as, passing downs and getting his feet wet as a, sort of a specialist. And then, like Colin and Anthony were able to take on a larger role over time. I think we'll see that with Justice as well. But it's very exciting. Michael Terry's going to play wide receiver to start, probably slot receiver because that's an easy transition to flex tight end. It's a very similar position route-wise. That'll make the most sense. But I can't wait to get people on the phone and see who else has arrived. If there have been more arrivals, I suspect there have been.
We'll be tracking all that and more over on Inside Texas and also here on our Inside Texas Football YouTube channel. So give us a like. Also go to InsideTexas.com. Got a promo running. Get 7 days. So get all the way through the end of the Peach Bowl and into potential Cotton Bowl prep just for $1. Thank you, Eric. Thank you to Andre the Lawyer. And thank you for watching Inside the Program presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors, the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel.